Okay, I'm sat here today with Dr. Ben Truebody, who contributes to some of the RPE courses here at Gloucestershire. Sure. But recently, Ben, I found out, or you told me, so I found out, that you'd written an article about something related to this term that you used that I found interesting, was the idea of the Shadow Academy.
Sure. Which
isn't a new institution I haven't heard of.
No, not
but was a kind of way of referring to a certain kind of practice or an aspect of contemporary academic life. What kind of things did you have in mind when you were using that phrase?
It was a concept of borrowing from a number of sort of French thinkers, where basically systems have the potential for becoming the opposite of what they stand for. And so academy or university or schools, which are positioned like places for education, depending on what you mean by education, means that term can be subverted and become for political ends or what have you.
So the idea of universities and the academy more generally acting in such a way that it's actually hindering its stated aims.
Yeah, so
by concealing things or making things less plain.
Indeed, yeah. So I would say, so if you thought the purpose of education is either self-discovery or free thought, you will then maybe see where in other institutions certain agendas may be pushed, where it might be the STEM subject, so real knowledge is sort of sciencey based or engineering, and it's not so much arts and humanities.
So that's an example of a very kind of broad brush idea in which the kind of knowledge, the idea of free inquiry is subverted by a different view of education. I think also when we talked about it before, you have some more particular, precise types of practice that are more, transparently dubious, I guess, in some sense, but which are going on and people would perhaps be familiar with.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know how many people have had this experience, but something I've had personally is where you're looking to publish a piece and sort of you're looking for the sort of particularly apt journal. But then you maybe get unsolicited emails where you pay a certain fee and your piece can get published through a minor kind of peer review process or no peer review process. And then it goes to publication, which then a reader has to pay an access fee, which can be upwards of like hundreds of dollars or pounds, and which normally has the property of concealing knowledge. So people don't want to pay money to read stuff. So you have this whole closed sort of repository of good or bad knowledge. No one knows, you never get to read it. So, yeah.
And I guess there are two aspects to that. One is the critique people often make of open access journals anyway in terms of paying to publish. But this model where it's neither open access nor is it free to publish.
Yes. Yeah.
Presumably a fair majority of those, particularly in terms of the ones that you get unsolicited emails about, are from enterprises set up not to further knowledge, but to generate income.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so as a byproduct, contain knowledge as well. So yeah, people don't have access to it. But yeah, you'll get sort of titles that look very authentic, but might just be sort of a noun out or what have you from a very well-known journal. So they have these kind of sort of mirroring properties. They give the appearance of authenticity, but are not.
So the academic world has its versions of spam, just to invite you to log into a bank that turns out not to be yours.
Indeed, yes, yeah. It's a kind of a black market economy of knowledge, where but there is a relationship there because obviously to work at a university, become a professional academic, you need to publish, and so therefore it's in both people's interest a supply and demand relationship where you get a publication, no one's maybe going to check, or if they do, it looks like a really good name journal, and they get money as a result.
So there's that aspect of it, of course, but to many people who do fall down that route, and I guess a lot of people when they're just finishing their doctorate or they're kind of embarking on that, they are very keen to fill that bit of their CV that says publications.
Sure.
And therefore are really excited to get an email seeming to be interested in their work.
Yes.
But of course, a real specialist in the fine-grained detail of their career will know that the journal of stuff,
yes.
Well, okay, it's journal of science and philosophy and stuff, probably isn't quite legit. So it doesn't necessarily further their career. It conceals knowledge in a sense of being the opposite of what universities do. I've certainly had them in relation to journal articles, but also maybe conferences where the topic is so wide
Yes.
That the inviting applications on this topic, including perspectives from, and there's all areas you can think of.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's a feature of the journals as well. Their actual core for papers is disturbingly vague, and whatever you're doing, you'll definitely fit in.
Yes, yes. Again, I'm not mentioning names or anything, but been to conferences where there are kind of people have to be seen to be giving papers because otherwise they won't get money. The conference doesn't get the awarding money, and so therefore what the person says may make no sense whatsoever or actually contribute very little. But they then go on the roster of speakers and what have you, and people sit there very politely and listen and try and ask a question. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is this kind of whole world of that going on. See, journals were kind of the most intrusive part of that. Is kind of what you might call fake journals or journals designed, but the only thing is to conceal knowledge and generate money, which is the opposite of the life of the mind that we're embarked on. So they're probably the most, say, noticeable tip of that iceberg. But what else kind of lurks below and says this term, shadow academy, that I quite like?
Well, I mean, where journal is a signifier of research, there is a certain amount of bogus research that goes on that one will either be covered by the fact that it's a bogus journal that people will never read, or even worse, it actually gets into the public domain as knowledge and basically kicks around in the ethosphere as knowledge for a while till...
Especially when it says, as a journal article today suggested that.
Indeed, yes.
And some journalists have stumbled over it.
Yes, yes. Or what's even worse is where experts within their field can't actually tell the difference as well. So has there been a noticeable case?
So you can tell you do philosophy.
Yeah. There was in 2011 there was a big case in Holland about a professor at the top of his game in social psychology, but he'd been found to make all his research up, oversaw 20 odd doctorates, loads of awards, but none of it was genuine, and no one within the field could tell the difference.
On that depressing kind of, I think we might temporarily pause. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Dave.